Welcome to the deep dive. You know how some subjects just feel weighty? Like they've got this really deep history, and understanding them could actually shift your perspective.
Absolutely, that sense of gravity.
Exactly. That's where we're headed today. We're beginning a journey, really, into the foundations of yoga, peeling back the layers to explore the ancient wisdom that, informs even the most basic pose.
Think of it as step one.
Right, the first step in truly grasping the gravity of this profound tradition.
And it's going to be quite an exploration. We're starting with 3 pivotal texts.
Yeah.
The Yoga Vasistha, the Shiva Samhita, and the Gheranda Samhita.
Okay.
And these aren't just like historical footnotes. They're vibrant sources that have shaped the essence of yoga for centuries. This is our initial big, you could say.
Unearthing the core principles.
Exactly. The principles this whole system is built on.
And we're not just, glancing at them. We're diving deep into these primary sources to really get a handle on what each one brings to the table.
It's remarkable, the range.
Isn't it? From really complex philosophy right down to very practical physical techniques.
And spanning quite a time frame. We're talking 11th century up to the late 17th century.
So a long evolution of thought.
Definitely. And it's worth noting, there's a lot of scholarly work around these texts, too. Academic papers, various translations. They give us different angles to look at these teachings.
Right, different lenses.
Our mission, for this first deep dive anyway, is to pull out the core ideas from these key works and to start figuring out why they still matter so much today.
Okay, so to really get that sense of gravity, let's start at the beginning. The origins, the Yoga Vasistha, where does that come from?
Well, the sources suggest it likely originated up in Kashmir.
Kashmir. Okay.
Probably sometime between the 11th and 14th centuries CE. And interestingly, it's traditionally attributed to Valmiki.
Valmiki, the author of the Ramayana.
The very same. Though actual authorship is uncertain, as is often the case with ancient texts.
But attributing it to someone like Valmiki, that must have meant something, right? Give it some weight.
Oh, absolutely. Huge authority, prestige. It signals its importance.
Yeah.
What's also fascinating is its intellectual lineage.
How so?
Research points to it evolving from earlier Upanishadic thought, and it seems to have soaked up influences from Buddhism and also Shaivitrika philosophy.
So a real melting pot of ideas.
Very much so. And it connects back even further, referencing sage Vasistha from the Rig Veda.
Wow, so really ancient roots.
And crucially, it became a cornerstone text for Advaita Vedanta.
The non-dual philosophy.
Exactly. The idea of the fundamental unity of everything.
Okay, so that's the Yoga Vasistha. What about the Shiva Samhita? That one's a bit later.
Yeah, slightly later. Estimated between 1300 and 1500 CE.
And location.
The scholarly thinking points towards Varanasi, or somewhere nearby.
Varanasi, a major spiritual center.
Immense significance, historically and spiritually. So its origin there probably suggests it was engaging with the religious and philosophical currents of the time.
And like the Yoga Vasistha, we don't know the author.
Nope. Author unknown. What's interesting structurally is that it's framed as a dialogue between Lord Shiva and his consort Parvati.
Ah, that's a common format, isn't it, for teaching?
Very common. It allows for exploring different facets of the teaching, and we know there are quite a few different versions, different manuscripts floating around. Over a dozen, actually.
Must make translation tricky.
It can. Thankfully, modern scholarship, especially James Mallinson's 2007 translation, really tried to tackle inaccuracies found in some earlier English versions.
Good. So providing a clearer picture.
Exactly, helping us get closer to the original intent.
Okay. And the third one, the Gheranda Samhita, that's the most recent.
That's right, late 17th century, probably from Northeast India.
Northeast India, okay. And it also uses that dialogue format.
It does, this time between Sage Gheranda and his student Chanda Kapali.
Being the latest of the 3, does that mean it's sort of building on the earlier ones? Or maybe reacting to them?
That's a great question. It certainly sits within that historical flow. Its influence seems pretty broad, too. Manuscripts have turned up all the way from Bengal to Rajasthan.
Wow, quite a spread.
Yeah, suggests it traveled. And again, translations are key. Sri Sachandra Vasu did one way back in 1895.
Okay.
Then there's a critical edition from Digambarji and Gote in 78, and Mallinson did another translation in 2004. These have all been vital for, making it accessible and understanding its place.
So let's just quickly recap those origins to lock them in. Yoga Vasistha, 11th, 14th century, Kashmir, maybe Valmiki, big on Advaita Vedanta.
Right.
Shiva Samhita, 1300, 1500, probably Varanasi, Shiva Parvati dialogue, important early Hatha Yoga text.
Exactly.
And Gheranda Samhita, late 17th century, Northeast India, Gheranda Chandakapali dialogue, known for its systematic approach.
Get it. Understanding these roots is, well, it's fundamental before we dig into the content itself. Each text comes from a specific time and place, offering its unique flavor.
Okay, let's get into that content then. The Yoga Vasistha. You said it's massive.
Oh, it's huge. Over 29,000 verses, spread across 6 books, or prakarat.
6 books. Wow, what do they cover?
They map out a whole journey, starting with vairagya, detachment, disillusionment with the world, the mumukshutva, the intense desire for liberation, utpatti, creation and cosmology, city existence, preservation, upashama, tranquility, dissolution, and finally, nirvana, liberation.
So a complete path laid out. What's the point of it being so vast? Is it just trying to be exhaustive?
It suggests a really comprehensive exploration, definitely. But it's how it explores these ideas. It uses these elaborate stories, nested narratives, almost like Russian dolls.
Stories within stories.
Exactly. To explore really complex things, consciousness, reality, how to get liberated through your own effort, through meditation. It makes these huge philosophical concepts feel more relatable, maybe. Experiential.
Instead of just dry philosophy.
Right. And it really hammers home the idea of Maya, that what we perceive as reality is, in a sense, illusory.
Okay. Is there a shorter version? 29,000 verses is a lot.
There is, actually. The Yoga Vasistha. Lagu meaning small or light. It's about 6,000 verses, so maybe a more approachable entry point for some.
Good to know. Now, the Shiva Samhita, you mentioned 5 chapters. How does its structure compare?
It's quite different. It starts with that philosophical base, non-dual Vedanta, with some influences from Sri Vidya Tantra, as we mentioned.
Right.
But then it pivots pretty directly into the practical side of Hatha Yoga.
So theory first, then the how-to. What does that structure tell us?
It suggests a really integrated approach, I think. You need the understanding and the practices to realize that understanding. It emphasizes both.
And what kind of practices does it detail?
It covers a lot for an early Hatha text. The importance of finding a guru, first off. It mentions 84 asanas, though it only actually describes 4 in detail.
Which 4?
Siddhasana, Padmasana, Paschimottanasana, which is actually the first time this pose is described in a text.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. And Swastikasana. Then it goes into pranayama, breath control, mudras, gestures or seals, some tantric practices, and different types of meditation.
Quite comprehensive on the practice side.
It is. And a really key point is that it explicitly says yoga isn't just for ascetics out in the forest. It's for householders, too, people living regular lives.
Ah, that feels significant, making it more accessible.
Hugely significant. Probably played a big role in yoga, becoming a practice you could integrate into, everyday life, not just monastic life.
Okay. And then the Gheranda Samhita, 7 chapters, 351 verses, much shorter. It outlines a 7-limbed path.
Yes, a distinct 7-fold path, which is different from the 8 limbs most people know from Patanjali's Yoga Sutras.
How is it different? What are the 7 limbs here?
Well, the emphasis is a bit different. It starts right away with purification, shat karma, the 6 cleansing actions. That's limb 1.
Purification first. Okay.
Then asana postures, it details 32. Then mudra gestures, it describes 25, followed by pratyahara sense withdrawal. Then pranayama breath control, 10 types. Dhyana meditation techniques. And finally, samadhi absorption, 6 types.
So the sequence is different, and the emphasis seems very physical initially, with the purification and postures up front.
Exactly. It really highlights preparing the body. It's famously known for focusing on Gatastha yoga.
Gatastha? What's that?
Gata means pot or vessel. So vessel yoga. The idea is that the physical body is the primary container, the instrument you use for spiritual practice in this life. You need to cleanse and strengthen the vessel first.
Got it. So summarizing the content, Yoga Vasistha, massive story-driven exploration of consciousness, Maya, liberation.
Right. Very philosophical, using narrative.
Shiva Samhita blends non-dual philosophy with practical Hatha Yoga, explicitly for householders too.
Bridging theory and practice for a wider audience.
And Gheranda Samhita, a concise, step-by-step practical system starting with intense physical purification, vessel yoga.
Precisely. Each offers a distinct map, a different emphasis within the yoga landscape, reflecting different ways to approach that ultimate goal of self-realization.
Okay, this gives us a great foundation. Now let's talk about the impact. What's the significance of these texts? How have they influenced things? Let's start again with the Yoga Vasistha. Its sheer size alone must mean something.
Absolutely. It's one of the longest Hindu texts, period.
Hmm.
And its significance lies partly in its synthesis. It weaves together threads from Advaita Vedanta, Yoga, Samkhya, even hints of Jainism and Buddhism. It's quite syncretic.
So bringing different schools of thought together.
Exactly. And historians suggest it was incredibly dominant in Indian yoga culture before the 12th century. It influenced many medieval Advaita scholars significantly.
And does it still have influence today?
Oh, definitely. Figures like Ramana Maharshi, a major 20th century sage, drew heavily on it. His method of Atmavichara, or self-inquiry, has deep roots in the Yoga Vasistha's approach.
Self-inquiry, asking, who am I?
Precisely that. And because of its narrative style, it remains relatively accessible, despite its philosophical depth. People connect with the stories.
Makes sense. What about the Shiva Samhita, its significance?
Well, it's generally considered one of the three major classic Hatha Yoga treatises, along with the Gheranda Samhita and the Hatha Yoga Pradipika.
Okay, so part of the core Hatha Yoga canon.
Right. And many see it as the most comprehensive of the three, covering philosophy, subtle anatomy, and practices. Plus, that unique point about recommending yoga for householders was quite radical.
Yeah, we touched on that, and you mentioned it described Paschimottanasana first.
Yes, historically significant for asana practice. Its detailed descriptions of yoga physiology, nadis, chakras, and its integration of tantric elements have profoundly shaped how modern Hatha Yoga developed.
So its influence is very much felt in physical yoga today.
Very much so.
And the Gheranda Samhita, how significant is that one?
It's seen as quite encyclopedic in nature for Hatha Yoga. Its unique sevenfold path, especially that strong emphasis on the Shat Karma or purification practices, made it foundational for yoga education.
The cleansing practices.
Right. Those detailed instructions on cleansing were, and in some traditions still are, considered crucial preparatory steps. So it's been very influential in both traditional lineages and how modern yoga therapy sometimes approaches preparation for practice.
Okay, so 3 texts, each significant in its own way. Yoga Vasistha for philosophy and synthesis, Shiva Samhita as a comprehensive Hatha text for wider society, and Gheranda Samhita for its systematic, purification-focused Hatha approach.
That captures it well. They represent different, important streams within the tradition.
Let's dig a bit deeper into the philosophical underpinnings now. We've mentioned Advaita Vedanta a few times, especially for the Yoga Vasistha. Can we unpack that a bit more?
Sure. The Yoga Vasistha is really steeped in Advaita. Concepts like Maya, the illusory nature of the phenomenal world, are central. It argues that the only true reality is Brahman, the ultimate, unchanging consciousness.
Non-duality again.
Exactly. There's no fundamental separation between the individual self, Atman, and Brahman. Liberation comes from realizing this non-duality. And crucially, the text emphasizes self-effort, Purusha. It rejects fatalism.
So you have to do the work yourself.
Yes, you achieve liberation through your own wisdom and effort. It even outlines 7 bhumikas, or stages of knowledge that a seeker progresses through.
7 stages. What are they briefly?
Okay. First is supacha, longing for truth. Then vikarana, right inquiry. Tanamanasa, sending out of the mind. Saddhapadi, attainment of purity or lucidity. Asasakti, non-attachment. Padarthabhavada, non-perception of objects, seeing reality as it is. And finally, turiya, the state of perpetual liberation, beyond waking, dreaming, and deep sleep.
Wow, a detailed map for spiritual progress.
Very much so, based firmly on that Advaita foundation.
Now, the Shiva Samhita, it also draws on Advaita, but you mentioned Sri Veda Tantra too. How does that blend work?
It does blend them. It affirms the non-dual nature of the self, the Atman, describing it as Satchitananda, truth, consciousness, and bliss.
Satchitananda, okay.
That's pure Advaita. But the influence of Srividya, a sophisticated school of Tantra, likely informs some of the specific practices, the focus on energy, chakras, and perhaps the view of the divine feminine, Shakti, implicitly present in the dialogue with Parvati.
So it integrates the philosophical goal with specific energetic practices.
Precisely. It sees Yoga Hatha Yoga included as the supreme path to moksha, or liberation, fully integrating the physical and spiritual aims. The philosophy and practice are inseparable.
And the Gheranda Samhita, also Advaita-inspired.
Yes, its philosophical outlook is also grounded in Advaita Vedanta. It affirms the self as Brahman, as Satchitananda. It uses concepts like Maya, Jnana, knowledge, and Ahankara, ego.
But its focus seemed more practical.
That's the key difference. While the philosophy is Advaitic, the text itself is overwhelmingly practical. It's less about philosophical exposition and more about providing the means, the physical and mental disciplines needed to prepare the practitioner for those higher states of meditation and eventually realizing that non-dual reality. The philosophy is the why, but the text focuses on the how.
So to summarize the philosophies, Yoga Vasistha is deep Advaita, focused on consciousness, Maya, and self-effort through stages of knowledge.
Right, heavy on the philosophical inquiry.
Shiva Samhita blends Advaita with Tantra, Srividya, viewing yoga practices as the path to realize the Satchitananda nature of the self.
Integrating philosophy and practice explicitly.
And Gheranda Samhita assumes an Advaita background, but concentrates heavily on the practical, preparatory Hatha techniques for achieving that realization.
Exactly. Practical application is its main thrust.
Okay, this brings us to today. How are these ancient texts still relevant? What's their modern resonance? Let's take the Yoga Vasistha.
Well, its deep psychological insights are remarkably relevant. Its exploration of consciousness, the mind, perception, illusion. It resonates strongly with contemporary interests in mindfulness, consciousness studies, even cognitive science to some extent.
So ancient wisdom meeting modern inquiry.
In a way, yes. And that practice of self-inquiry, Atma-vichara, influenced by it, remains a potent spiritual practice for many worldwide. Plus, it continues to be translated and studied globally, English, Telugu, Russian. Its influence persists.
Fascinating. In the Shiva Samhita, its modern relevance seems quite direct, given its focus on Hatha practices.
Absolutely. Its descriptions of Asanas, Pranayama, Mudras, the subtle body, this forms a huge part of the foundation for modern Hatha Yoga systems. Many postures and techniques taught today trace their lineage back through texts like this.
And the critical editions, like Mallinson's you mentioned,
they're incredibly important. For serious yoga teacher trainings, for academic research, having accurate translations helps ensure we're understanding the practices and their original context correctly, rather than relying on potentially flawed earlier interpretations.
Right, getting closer to the source.
Definitely.
Finally, the Gheranda Samhita. How is it used or viewed today?
Its comprehensive descriptions, especially of Shat Karma and the 22 detailed asanas, make it a valuable resource in yoga education. Teacher trainings often reference it, particularly for understanding the purification practices.
Are those intense cleansing practices common now?
Some are, like basic nasal cleansing, neti. But some of the more intense internal cleansings described are, well, less common in general classes today, often due to health considerations or needing very expert guidance. But the text itself remains a key reference.
And modern scholarship continues to engage with it.
Yes. Mallinson's 2004 translation is widely used, and scholars like Georg Feuerstein have highlighted its practical value in their work. It's recognized as a cornerstone text for understanding the breadth of classical Hatha Yoga techniques.
So, wrapping up the modern relevance, Yoga Vasistha speaks to modern psychology and consciousness studies.
Its philosophical depth endures.
Shiva Samhita provides foundational techniques for modern Hatha Yoga practice.
Directly influential on asana and pranayama.
And Gheranda Samhita remains a key educational text, especially for its detailed system and purification methods, even if not all are widely practiced now.
Exactly. Its systematic approach is still highly valued.
So what's the big takeaway from this initial dive into these three texts?
I think the main thing is seeing how together they provide this incredibly rich foundation. They show the multifaceted nature of yoga. It's not just one thing. It bridges deep philosophical inquiry, like in the Yoga Vasistha, with highly systematized physical and energetic practices, as we see in the Shiva and Gheranda Samhitas.
Philosophy and practice, deeply intertwined.
Absolutely. And they demonstrate the enduring legacy of this tradition, how ancient wisdom connects to modern life and practice. They really inspire you to keep exploring yoga's transformative potential.
They certainly lay the groundwork for understanding the gravity we talked about at the start. It's clearly a vast and evolving landscape.
Indeed. And we've really only just scratched the surface of these three, let alone the entire tradition.
Which leads to a thought for you, the listener, to ponder. We've seen three distinct starting points here. The Vasistha's focus on consciousness, the Shiva Samhita's integrated approach for householders, the Gheranda Samhita's emphasis on purifying the physical vessel. Considering these different angles, which aspect resonates most with your own understanding or experience of yoga? Is the deep philosophical questions, the energetic practices, or the physical disciplines? Something to think about as we continue this journey together.
A great question to reflect on. Where does your own path intersect with these ancient streams?
Exactly. We're excited to continue peeling back the layers in future deep dives.